The conference room smelled like stale coffee and broken promises. I sat across from Richard Morrison, the man who had been my boss for 7 years, watching him shuffle papers he clearly hadn't read. His nephew Tyler sat beside him, 24 years old with perfectly styled hair and a smirk that told me everything I needed to know about how this meeting would end. My name is Marcus Chen, I'm 35 years old, and until that Tuesday morning in March, I was the senior account manager at Morrison Digital Solutions, a mid-sized marketing agency in downtown Seattle. Richard cleared his throat and finally looked up from his papers. Marcus, we need to talk about restructuring the account management division. I had been with the company since 2017, back when we had 12 employees and operated out of a cramped office above a Chinese restaurant. I had built our client relationships from nothing, personally managing accounts that now generated over 60% of the company's revenue. I knew every client's preferences, their business cycles, their pain points, and exactly how to keep them happy. But sitting in that conference room, I realized none of that mattered anymore. We're bringing in fresh perspectives, Richard continued, his voice carrying the rehearsed tone of someone who had practiced this conversation. Tyler just graduated from business school with a focus on digital marketing strategy. He has some innovative ideas about client engagement. I glanced at Tyler, who was scrolling through his phone while his uncle talked about innovative ideas. This was the same kid who had asked me last month if SEO stood for super easy operations. The same kid who thought a conversion rate was something related to currency exchange. The meeting dragged on for another 20 minutes. Richard talked about new directions and modern approaches while Tyler nodded along, occasionally adding meaningless buzzwords he had probably learned in his marketing classes. They discussed my transition timeline, the accounts I would need to hand over, and the severance package they were offering. I listened without interrupting, my mind already working through the implications of what was happening. 7 years of relationship building, of late nights fixing client crises, of growing this company from a startup to a legitimate business, and this was how it ended. We appreciate everything you've done for Morrison Digital, Richard said finally, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Your dedication has been noted. Noted. 7 years reduced to a single word, just like that. I took the envelope and stood up, shaking hands with Richard but pointedly ignoring Tyler's outstretched palm. As I walked back to my desk to collect my things, I could hear Tyler already asking his uncle about my office space and whether he could redecorate. My phone buzzed as I was packing my personal items into a cardboard box. A text from my wife Sarah, "How did the meeting go?" I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, "Big changes coming. I'll explain tonight." I didn't tell her I had just been replaced by a 24-year-old with no experience and a famous last name. I didn't tell her that 7 years of building something meaningful had just been swept aside for family politics. That conversation could wait until I figured out my next move. But as I placed my coffee mug in the box, I remembered something important. In my wallet, I had 3 business cards that clients had given me over the years. Cards with personal cell phone numbers and handwritten notes saying, "Call me if you ever decide to go independent." I had kept them as curiosities, never thinking I would actually need them. Now, sitting at my desk for what might be the last time, those cards felt like lifelines. The next morning, I woke up early and drove to a coffee shop downtown, away from the Morrison Digital office. I needed space to think and plan without running into anyone from the company. Over the past 7 years, I had built relationships with some of Seattle's most demanding clients, and I knew exactly why they stayed with Morrison Digital Solutions. It wasn't because of Richard's leadership or the company's innovative strategies. They stayed because of personal relationships, consistent communication, and results that exceeded expectations. They stayed because of me. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Amanda Rodriguez from Pacific Northwest Insurance, our biggest client with a $300,000 annual contract. James Kim from Cascade Tech Solutions, $180,000 annually. Lisa Thompson from Emerald City Hospitality Group, $220,000 annually. These weren't just account numbers in a spreadsheet. These were people who trusted me personally, who called my direct line when they had problems, who had specifically requested to work with me on new campaigns. My first call was to Amanda Rodriguez. She answered on the second ring, and I could hear the familiar sounds of her busy office in the background. Marcus. Perfect timing. I was just reviewing the Q2 campaign performance metrics you sent over. The results are fantastic. We talked for a few minutes about her account before I carefully broached the subject of my departure. Amanda, I wanted to let you know that I'll be transitioning away from Morrison Digital Solutions. Tyler Morrison will be taking over your account. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Tyler Morrison. Richard's nephew? The kid who sat in on our last meeting and asked if we wanted to advertise on TikTok. I almost smiled at that. Tyler had indeed suggested TikTok advertising for a professional insurance company whose target demographic was business owners over 40. That's the one, I said. I'm sure he'll do his best to maintain the service standards you're used to. Marcus, can I ask you something off the record? Amanda's voice had shifted to a more serious tone. Are you planning to stay in the industry? Because if you're thinking about going independent or joining another agency, I'd be very interested in continuing our working relationship. I told her I was exploring my options and would keep her informed. After we hung up, I sat in the coffee shop for a long time, thinking about what she had really been offering. Not just her business, but validation that the relationships I had built were real and valuable. My second call was to James Kim at Cascade Tech Solutions. James was more direct than Amanda. They're replacing you with Richard's nephew? The kid who doesn't know the difference between a click-through rate and a conversion rate? When I confirmed his suspicions, James was quiet for a moment. Marcus, I've been thinking about making some changes to our marketing strategy anyway. Our contract with Morrison Digital is up for renewal next month. Maybe this is good timing to explore other options. The third call was to Lisa Thompson at Emerald City Hospitality Group. Lisa had been my first major client win at Morrison Digital Solutions, and we had worked together for 6 years. When I explained the situation, her response was immediate and decisive. Absolutely not. I'm not working with some inexperienced kid who got the job because of family connections. Marcus, you know our business inside and out. You understand the hospitality industry's seasonal patterns, our target demographics, our brand voice. There's no way I'm starting over with someone new. By the end of the week, I had reached out to 12 of my major clients. The responses were unanimous. They were loyal to me personally, not to Morrison Digital Solutions. Several clients mentioned that they had specifically chosen Morrison Digital because of my track record and reputation in the industry. Others talked about the personal attention and customized strategies I had developed for their businesses. None of them were excited about working with Tyler Morrison. But I wasn't planning to poach clients immediately. I had signed a non-compete agreement with Morrison Digital, and while I was pretty sure it wouldn't hold up in court, I didn't want to start my next career move with a legal battle. Instead, I began researching other marketing agencies in Seattle, looking for companies that might value experienced account management and established client relationships. That's when I discovered Pinnacle Marketing Group. Pinnacle Marketing Group was a boutique agency founded 5 years earlier by Elena Vasquez, a former executive from one of Seattle's largest advertising firms. They specialized in working with mid-market companies, exactly the type of clients I had been managing at Morrison Digital. Their website showcased impressive case studies and client testimonials, but what caught my attention was their emphasis on long-term relationships and personalized service. This was exactly the kind of company where my experience and client connections would be valued. I arranged a meeting with Elena for the following Monday. Her office was located in a converted warehouse in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, with exposed brick walls and large windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Elena herself was impressive, sharp, experienced, and clearly focused on building something sustainable rather than just profitable. We talked for over an hour about marketing strategy, client relationship management, and the challenges of competing with larger agencies. Marcus, I've been following your work at Morrison Digital for years, Elena said as our conversation wound down. The Pacific Northwest insurance campaign you managed last year was brilliant. The way you positioned their commercial coverage in the tech sector showed real understanding of both industries. I was surprised she knew about that campaign in such detail. The marketing community in Seattle is smaller than people think, she explained. Good work gets noticed, and your reputation for client satisfaction is well known. Elena leaned forward in her chair. I'm going to be direct with you. Pinnacle Marketing Group has been looking for a senior account manager with established relationships and proven results. We have the infrastructure and creative capabilities to handle major accounts, but we need someone who can bring in and manage significant clients. Based on what I know about your situation at Morrison Digital, I think this could be a perfect fit. The offer she presented was substantial. Base salary 20% higher than what I had been making at Morrison Digital, plus performance bonuses tied to account retention and new business development. But the most interesting part of the package was an equity stake in the company. If Pinnacle Marketing Group achieved their growth targets over the next 3 years, my ownership share could be worth more than I had made in my entire career at Morrison Digital. There was one condition, though. Elena wanted me to start within 2 weeks, and she was specifically interested in my ability to attract major clients who might be dissatisfied with their current agencies. She didn't ask me to violate my non-compete agreement, but she made it clear that Pinnacle Marketing Group was positioned to grow rapidly if the right opportunities presented themselves. I accepted the offer that afternoon. The paperwork was straightforward, and Elena handled everything personally. My official start date would be the following Monday, giving me exactly 1 week to prepare for what I suspected would be a very interesting transition period. That evening, I called Sarah and told her everything. She listened without interrupting as I explained the situation at Morrison Digital, the conversations with clients, and the opportunity at Pinnacle Marketing Group. So Richard Morrison fired you to hire his nephew, and now half his clients want to follow you to your new company? Sarah summarized when I finished. That sounds like poetic justice to me. I reminded her that I couldn't actively solicit clients because of the non-compete agreement. But if they come to you, she said with a smile. That's just business. Monday morning arrived faster than I expected. I spent my first day at Pinnacle Marketing Group reviewing their current client portfolio and meeting the creative team. Elena had assembled an impressive group of designers, copywriters, and digital strategists, all focused on delivering high-quality work for demanding clients. The company culture was professional but relaxed, with none of the family politics that had made my final months at Morrison Digital so frustrating. Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Amanda Rodriguez from Pacific Northwest Insurance. Marcus, I hope I'm not bothering you at your new job, she said when I answered. But I needed to talk to someone who understands our business. She went on to explain that Tyler Morrison had called her that morning to discuss revolutionary changes to their marketing strategy. He had suggested they pivot to social media advertising and influencer partnerships to reach younger demographics. Marcus, we sell commercial insurance to established businesses. Our average client is 45 years old and owns a company with 20 to 50 employees. Tyler wants us to hire Instagram influencers to promote liability coverage. I could hear the frustration in Amanda's voice. I tried to explain our target market, but he kept talking about disrupting the insurance industry and thinking outside the box. I listened sympathetically while being careful not to criticize Tyler or Morrison Digital directly. Insurance marketing does require a specialized approach, I said diplomatically. Understanding the industry and the client base is crucial for effective campaigns. Amanda was quiet for a moment, then asked the question I had been expecting. Marcus, I know you probably have restrictions about working with former clients, but is there any way Pinnacle Marketing Group might be interested in our business? I explained that I would need to review the situation with Elena, but that Pinnacle Marketing Group was always interested in working with quality clients who valued professional service. Amanda seemed relieved. Our contract with Morrison Digital expires at the end of next month. I think it's time we explored other options. After we hung up, I walked straight to Elena's office to fill her in on the conversation. Elena's response was immediate and enthusiastic. Pacific Northwest Insurance. Their account alone would increase our revenue by 40%. If you can bring them over without violating your non-compete agreement, I'll personally handle the transition. We spent the next hour discussing strategy and timing. Elena was confident that if clients approached us directly, rather than being solicited, there would be no legal issues with the non-compete agreement. Wednesday brought another call, this time from James Kim at Cascade Tech Solutions. Marcus, I've been thinking about our conversation last week. Tyler Morrison contacted me yesterday with some ideas for our upcoming product launch campaign. James paused, and I could tell he was choosing his words carefully. Let's just say his understanding of B2B technology marketing is limited. He suggested we create viral videos featuring our software engineers doing dance challenges. I almost laughed out loud at that image, but I managed to keep my response professional. James continued, our contract renewal is coming up in 3 weeks. I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss alternatives. Would Pinnacle Marketing Group be interested in a presentation? I assured him that we would be very interested in hearing about his needs and seeing how we might be able to help. By Thursday, I had received similar calls from 3 more clients. The pattern was consistent. Tyler Morrison was reaching out with enthusiastic but completely inappropriate suggestions that showed a fundamental misunderstanding of each client's business and target market. Lisa Thompson from Emerald City Hospitality Group was particularly frustrated. He wants us to partner with food bloggers to promote our hotel booking software. Marcus, we provide back-end systems for hotel chains, not restaurant reservations. I don't think he even looked at our account file. Friday afternoon, Elena knocked on my office door with a newspaper folded under her arm. You might want to see this, she said, placing the Seattle Business Journal on my desk. The headline read, Morrison Digital Solutions Faces Client Retention Challenges. The article was brief but accurate, reporting that several major clients had indicated they would not be renewing their contracts when they expired over the next 2 months. The article quoted Richard Morrison saying that the company was excited about new leadership in account management and confident that fresh perspectives would drive innovation and growth. But buried in the third paragraph was a more telling quote from an unnamed industry source. Morrison Digital built their reputation on personal relationships and consistent results. Replacing experienced account managers with inexperienced family members seems like a risky strategy. I showed the article to Elena, who read it with obvious satisfaction. The business community is paying attention, she said. Word travels fast in this industry, especially when established companies make questionable personnel decisions. She looked up from the newspaper. How many of your former clients have reached out so far? I counted quickly. 7 definite inquiries, with 3 more scheduled for next week. That weekend, I received a text message that I had been expecting but still found satisfying. It was from Tyler Morrison. Marcus, Uncle Richard wants to talk to you about consulting on the Pacific Northwest Insurance account. They're asking for someone with more experience. Can you call me back? I showed the message to Sarah, who shook her head in amazement. So now they want to pay you to fix the mess they created by firing you, she said. I didn't respond to Tyler's text. Monday morning, I was sitting in a conference room at Pinnacle Marketing Group with Elena and Amanda Rodriguez, discussing the transition of the Pacific Northwest Insurance account. Amanda had officially terminated her contract with Morrison Digital Solutions the previous Friday, citing concerns about service quality and strategic direction. The transition to Pinnacle Marketing Group would be seamless, she explained, because she had full confidence in my ability to maintain the high standards she expected. Tuesday brought similar meetings with James Kim and Lisa Thompson. Both clients had made the same decision. They were leaving Morrison Digital Solutions and following me to Pinnacle Marketing Group. The financial impact was substantial. In the span of 1 week, Pinnacle Marketing Group had acquired 3 major accounts representing over $700,000 in annual revenue. For a boutique agency, this kind of growth was transformational. But the real satisfaction wasn't financial. It was the validation that 7 years of relationship building, problem solving, and consistent results had created something valuable that couldn't be replaced by family connections or fresh perspectives. The clients weren't just buying marketing services, they were buying trust, experience, and proven results. Wednesday morning, my phone rang with a call from an unknown number. When I answered, I heard Richard Morrison's voice for the first time since my termination meeting. "Marcus, I think there's been a misunderstanding," he began, his tone carefully controlled. "Several of our clients seem to think you've left the company permanently. I wanted to clarify that we're always open to bringing back valued team members in a consulting capacity." I let him talk for a few minutes about consulting opportunities and flexible arrangements before responding. "Richard, there's no misunderstanding. I was terminated 2 weeks ago and replaced by Tyler. I've moved on to a new opportunity." There was silence on his end, then a cleared throat. "Marcus, I think we can work something out. Pacific Northwest Insurance specifically requested your involvement in their account. We could structure a partnership arrangement." "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I'm very happy with my current position. Elena Vasquez and the team at Pinnacle Marketing Group have been incredibly welcoming." Another pause. "Pinnacle Marketing Group? You're working for Elena Vasquez?" The concern in Richard's voice was obvious. He knew Elena's reputation in the Seattle marketing community. He also knew exactly what it meant that his former clients were now working with his former employee at a competing agency. The conversation ended awkwardly, with Richard saying he hoped there were no hard feelings and that he wished me well in my new position. But I could hear the stress in his voice. Morrison Digital Solutions was facing a crisis, and the decision to replace me with Tyler was looking more problematic by the day. That afternoon, Elena stopped by my office with an update on the business impact of our recent client acquisitions. "The Pacific Northwest Insurance account alone is generating enough revenue to hire 2 additional staff members," she said. "The Cascade Tech Solutions and Emerald City Hospitality accounts put us ahead of our growth projections for the entire year." She paused, looking thoughtful. "Marcus, I've been in this business for 15 years, and I've never seen client loyalty like this. Your reputation in the industry is remarkable." Over the next month, 2 more clients made the transition from Morrison Digital Solutions to Pinnacle Marketing Group. Both cited concerns about service quality and account management experience. The pattern was consistent. Tyler Morrison would contact them with inappropriate suggestions, they would request more experienced support, and Richard would scramble to offer consulting arrangements that the clients found unsatisfactory. By the end of April, Morrison Digital Solutions had lost 5 major clients, representing nearly 60% of their annual revenue. The Seattle Business Journal ran a follow-up article titled, "Family Business Decisions Prove Costly for Morrison Digital Solutions." The piece included quotes from former clients praising the professionalism and expertise they had found at other agencies, though none mentioned specific names or companies. I was having lunch at my desk one Tuesday when Elena knocked on my door with her laptop. "You need to see this," she said, turning the screen toward me. It was Morrison Digital Solutions' website, and they had posted a banner announcement, "Exciting restructuring and new opportunities." The page went on to explain that Tyler Morrison had decided to pursue other interests, and they were actively recruiting experienced account managers to join their growing team. "Tyler's gone?" I asked, scrolling through the announcement. Apparently he realized that marketing wasn't the right fit for his skill set, Elena replied with a slight smile. "According to my sources, he's joined his father's construction company. Something about wanting to work in a more hands-on industry." The irony wasn't lost on me. Richard Morrison had fired an experienced professional to hire his nephew, only to have his nephew quit when the job proved more challenging than expected. But the damage to Morrison Digital Solutions was already done. Losing 5 major clients in 2 months had created a financial crisis that wouldn't be easily resolved. Even if they hired experienced account managers, rebuilding client relationships would take years. The reputation for prioritizing family connections over professional competence would be hard to overcome in Seattle's tight-knit business community. 3 months later, I was reviewing quarterly performance reports at Pinnacle Marketing Group when Elena knocked on my door with a newspaper. "Final chapter," she said, placing the Seattle Business Journal on my desk. The headline read, "Morrison Digital Solutions acquired by Portland marketing firm." The article explained that Richard Morrison had sold the company to a larger agency after failing to recover from significant client losses. The acquisition price wasn't disclosed, but industry sources suggested it was substantially below the company's previous valuation. Richard Morrison would stay on as a consultant for 1 year to help with the transition. The article noted that the acquiring company was particularly interested in Morrison Digital's remaining client relationships and office lease in downtown Seattle. I folded the newspaper and set it aside. There was no satisfaction in seeing Richard Morrison's company fail. He had built something substantial over the years, and his decision to prioritize family over competence had destroyed much of that value. But there was validation in knowing that experience, relationships, and results still mattered in business, despite the temptation to take shortcuts or make decisions based on personal convenience. 6 months after starting at Pinnacle Marketing Group, I was sitting in my office reviewing proposals for our next phase of expansion. We had grown from 12 employees to 22, moved to a larger office space, and established Pinnacle Marketing Group as one of Seattle's premier boutique agencies. The client relationships I had built over 7 years at Morrison Digital Solutions had become the foundation for something new and more sustainable. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, saw the article about Pinnacle Marketing Group in the Times. "Congratulations on making the companies to watch list." The Seattle Times business section had featured our company in their annual roundup of growing local businesses. Elena had been quoted extensively about our approach to client relationships and long-term strategic thinking. But the real measure of success wasn't media coverage or revenue growth. It was walking into the office every morning knowing that our clients trusted us, our team respected each other's expertise, and we were building something based on merit rather than family connections. It was the satisfaction of proving that professional relationships, consistent results, and industry experience couldn't be replaced by fresh perspectives and innovative ideas alone. As I finished reviewing the expansion proposals, I thought about that conference room meeting where Richard Morrison had told me about restructuring and fresh perspectives. At the time, it had felt like the end of something important. But it had actually been the beginning of something better. Sometimes the best opportunities come disguised as the worst setbacks, and sometimes getting fired by your boss's nephew is exactly the push you need to build the career you really want. The phone rang, and I answered it the way I always had, ready to solve problems and exceed expectations. Outside my window, Seattle was busy with another day of opportunity and possibility. In the distance, I could see the building that had housed Morrison Digital Solutions, now occupied by a tech startup that probably had no idea about the family drama that had played out in those offices just months earlier. But that was someone else's story now. I had my own story to write, built on relationships that mattered, results that spoke for themselves, and the hard-won knowledge that sometimes the people who appreciate your work the most are the ones willing to follow you wherever you go. The game was just beginning, and this time, I was playing by rules that actually made sense.